The gaming industry sure is filled up with a lot of challenging games featuring many bosses that are tough to beat. A lot of bosses in video games are nearly impossible to beat unless you are a professional with your controller. These bosses require great skill to beat and might often leave you wanting to pull your hair as you strive to take them down. So without further ado, here are 7 toughest bosses in video games. Coming in at number 1, we have Malenia. This year, Elden Ring introduced one of the most menacing video game bosses known to man. Many players had trouble beating her, including even veterans. This boss was tough to beat even for many From Software fans who love a challenge. We can see people complaining on Reddit about being unable to beat her even after 100 tries. This certainly makes her one of the most fearsome and almost undefeatable boss for many players. This boss is not for the faint of heart, and many players considered defeating her tedious and gave up on defeating her. Though Malenia can be defeated if you have the skills with the controller and if you utilize your abilities well. A lot of players on Reddit were able to beat her successfully with the Mimic Tear skill and the Blasphemous Blade. Number 2, Sigrun. Sigrun from God of War is one of the most difficult boss battles in video games that had players slamming their controllers out of rage. Many players gave up defeating Sigrun on hard and chose to lower the game's difficulty to take the boss down. A lot of veteran players spent hours of misery trying to defeat this boss in an epic clash. Yet a lot of veterans praised the battle as one of the most exciting in video games. Many veterans claimed that this boss reminded them of tough soul bosses, and they had to learn her movesets to take her down efficiently. Number 3, Ludwig. Ludwig is the final boss of one of the most grueling Souls games, Bloodborne. The Bloodborne franchise is known for its horrific boss designs and exciting fast-paced combat. Ludwig is also one of the most challenging bosses in Souls history. Many players were utterly crushed during their first attempt in defeating Ludwig. Ludwig is almost undefeatable in your first attempt until you are skilled enough. It's best to face Ludwig when you are on a higher level and when you have managed to learn all of his movesets. Number 4, Amon. Amon from Yakuza Kiwami 2 was especially hard to beat for many Yakuza fans, even in an easier difficulty. This boss has 2 phases and is one of the most difficult bosses in the Yakuza franchise. During his first phase, he will be wielding a photon blade and does not seem much of a challenge. However, it gets real when he starts wielding a dual blade in a second phase along with a shield. A lot of players had a tough time taking him during his phase. It would require players to be more tactical and strategize carefully to defeat this tough boss. Number 5. Sans from Undertale is one of the most annoying and toughest bosses in video games. The boss plays mind games with his players by trying to make you feel pity for him, and would often hold back during the fight to make you feel guilty. Sans's poison attacks are dangerous and are not to be taken lightly. Moreover, his gravity controlling abilities can also be a huge nuisance to deal with. However, defeating him is necessary to get the genocide ending. Number 6, Absolute Virtue. Absolute Virtue is one of the most difficult bosses seen in the Final Fantasy franchise. For some players, it took 18 hours to try to beat this boss. The developers of the game also imposed a 2-hour limit to stop players from going overboard. The boss had an unbelievably high HP of 100,000 and remained undefeatable for a long time. However, the boss's HP was reduced to 66,000 with newer updates. That being said, this boss is still one of the most toughest bosses that only the most skilled players can beat. Number 7, Nameless King. The battle with the Nameless King is also claimed to be the toughest battle in the Dark Souls series by the fans. Many Souls players are unable to defeat this menacing boss even after 20 hours. The boss is harder to dodge as his swings are often harder to read. A lot of players are hesitant to take it down before they level up to 100. To beat him efficiently, players need to memorize the movesets and attack speed. Moreover, they need to carefully look for openings to strike a massive blow. Well, that's all for our list of the 7 toughest bosses to beat in video games. As a gamer, we all sure love a challenge, and these bosses are bound to make your gameplay exciting. That's all for this video. Leave a comment down below on who you think is the toughest boss. Hit that like and subscribe button. Happy gaming! Until later.